Nebraska Preps post-game with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy. He's welcoming us in. Wow. Must be Christmas. For another week of Nebraska Preps post-game, my main man, Jacob Padilla. I'm old DB. JP, how was the holiday, man? Did you get a chance to kind of catch your breath for a sec?
Yep, pretty good. Just pretty relaxing. Didn't do a whole lot, and now that's good because we get a busy week coming up here ahead with all the holiday tournaments going on.
Did you clear everybody out of the way for Suns Warriors on Christmas Day?
Yeah, we get the kind of the dual TV set up because they had the Packers on at the same time. So the Packers on one, Suns on the other, and then my dad, my brother, and I just chilling on the couch. So had a nice little setup there.
Nice.
One of those went better than the other.
Yeah, you know what? There was a stretch there, too, in that Suns game, kind of in the third quarter. I was like, okay, they're going to maybe start to take control. And, man, Steph Curry's just having none of it.
They were forcing him to be a volume guy early on. The first half, he had like 15 points on 16 shots or something like that. And then he kind of just took over in the fourth quarter like superstars are wont to do.
If you had one, this was a big argument in the Benning household. You're the captain. You got the first pick. Who are you taking in the NBA? The debate ended up being, surprisingly, between Giannis, KD, and Steph.
And Jokic would be the fourth guy that includes in that. Those are probably the guys playing the best basketball right now, the four guys that are the most unstoppable forces. And that's a really tough
I don't know if I could start a team with Giannis. Doesn't he need help?
Well, yeah, kind of, because you look at that team, it's not like they were a super, like a juggernaut team last year. Like, Drew forgetting how to play offense for long stretches.
The shot selection.
Not a whole lot of depth with some injuries in there, but there was just nothing. I saw it firsthand. Like there was nothing the Suns could do, and they were as equipped as anybody to slow him down with a guy like Ayton and McHale and all that, and they just couldn't do anything about it. So, like for all his weaknesses, he is still just an unstoppable physical force. That there's not a whole lot you can do once he's rolling because he's just so strong and athletic and long and coordinated. Like just some of the stuff he does, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's definitely those four. You take your pick. I think you're in good hands with any one of them.
It's just crazy how Steph can get you three at any time.
Yeah.
And
he can get anybody else three as well because of the attention he draws.
So it's like those add up in a hurry, right? Yeah. Anyways, we'll fast forward to high school. You got a chance to see a good one. We left C1 out of the mix last week. I don't know. It was a jam-packed show. We were cramming so many things in, and we forgot to preview a really good one with Auburn.
Recap Auburn's 67-game winning streak coming to end to DC West on December 18th. It was an overtime game at DC West. Brody Travis hit a couple of free throws, scored 17 points to get them to win there. So 67 straight games. Like I saw the number and I was like, wow, it got it. But actually, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been a long time since they lost. So. We wondered what Auburn was going to look like without Cam Binder and as importantly, Daniel Frary, because they've had that inside presence the last few years to balance out what Binder and the perimeter players do. And
I really liked the start of DC West. I saw them last year right before the district started against Platteview. And you could tell they had some pieces, a little on the young side for that Platteview team, but they had a lot of good players.
Yeah, and it's not a huge population base to draw from, but they do a great job of really kind of focusing on youth development with their middle school teams, getting kids involved in summer basketball, select basketball, all that kind of stuff. So they work really hard out there to kind of build up teams. And this year, again, that's a huge win for that program. But you mentioned previewing. The big one last week was Wahoo at Ashland Greenwood, one going 2-2 in the NEB Preps coaches rankings, and boy, that some wild swings with that one. It looked out the gates, like Wahoo is going to come in and roll through them. It's 12-4 after the first quarter. Cale Jacobson was the only one that had scored. And then things flipped big time, and they outscored them 61-31 the rest of the way.
Yeah, I thought Jacobson was kind of the difference. He really asserted he's just a bigger, stronger version of whatever Wahoo could throw at him. It's kind of a young team, especially physically, in Wahoo, and Jacobson just too much. Boy, was he a handful.
Well, and he asked for the defensive assignment on Marcus Glock as well, and held him 4 points on 2 of 9 shooting. Like you got a sophomore going against a senior that's been living in the weight room since he started high school
and has seen some really good competition.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's just great to see Cale back on the court. He's one of my favorite players to watch, and him that ACL injury, which happened around the holidays, mid-December last year. Just such a bummer for everybody involved in high school sports, because he's so much fun to watch and makes that team competitive against anybody. And it was good to see him back out there. He's still working through some rust. You could tell there were a couple uncharacteristic turnovers, and the 3 wasn't falling. But he still found a way. 19 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks.
Yeah, that's a pretty good stat line.
No kidding. And a big key was Evan Shepard coming alive as that secondary scorer, scoring 17 points on 7 of 10 shooting, hitting 3 threes. And probably the most fun part of the game was the fourth quarter. Max Parker, 6'6" senior. If you're not aware who he is, he had his hand blown off with a firework when he was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And he came out 4 for 4 from 3, knocking 2 apiece from each of the corners in the fourth quarter just to put that game away. Finished with 12 points, 8 boards, a block. So it was in every single with each 3 going down, the place was getting louder and louder. You can see how much fun all the Ashland Greenwood fans were having watching him put that game away.
Yeah, the kind of the essence of what high school sports is about, right? Yeah. Just kind of rallying communities. Fantastic environment. How do you enjoy having to sit in the same gym with one Mike Sauter? It kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, but you handle it a lot better than I do because you're such a professional.
Well, fortunately, or unfortunately for his sake, Sauter thought the game was in Wahoo. So
a little late, wasn't he?
He called me at like 3 minutes after 7. I was like, hey, in case you didn't know, the game's at Ashland. I'm like, I know, I'm sitting here. So,
yeah.
Well, I'm in Wahoo, so I will see you a bit. So he got stuck in the corner.
He was leaving me from Millard West girls game, and so we put it in Google Maps, but we did it to Wahoo and not to Ashland Greenwood. So, she's rolling in at like 7:05 or whatever. He's not very happy with himself, but hey,
about half the time I double check just to make sure, because
the whole @ thing, especially sometimes depending on where you get your info, and you have to look and see home game.
You have to look at the conference schedule to get the for sure tip off time and location and all that type of stuff, because that stuff's hard to find. You can't really find it on the NSA
it's not
page.
Just because who's first and who's second. Sometimes gotta get the
look. Neutral site games. And, so
hopping over to B, we'll get a nice little preview. I happen to see Coach Brodsky and Benji, Coach Haig at UBT a couple days ago, and both guys both having their teams getting ready to roll out to North Platte for a good one. It's a nice little foursome, right, with Beatrice, North Platte, Platteview, and of course Elkhorn. Kind of a little bit of a round robin. Can you stop kind of the size and length of Beatrice with Juergens handling the ball? Plattview's got to get another score. Elkhorn kind of growing into the role. And North Platte, kind of the host team. Long stretch of travel for teams to play on that day.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the interesting things about this week is you get these holiday tournaments, and you never know. Some teams have ones that they've been in for years. Others just kind of shop around and see what suits them that year. Some of them host teams, so it's always fun. I think that's definitely probably going to be the most intriguing one in Class B. One that I'm kind of just intrigued to see the results from is out at Scottsbluff. It's going to be Bennington against Hastings in the first round, and Scottsbluff against Lexington. Scottsbluff is 6-2, they've only played 2 Nebraska teams. Actually, they've only played one Nebraska team twice. They're 2-0 against Chadron and 4-2 against Colorado and Wyoming teams. So we haven't really seen them against Nebraska competition yet. So a game against Lexington and then potentially against a team like Bennington, I think, could tell us a lot about where Scottsbluff actually is in the Class B hierarchy. This
kind of getting through the thick of things, and then as we get ready tomorrow to start the Metro Holiday tournaments with a few little caveats, right? I mean, you've got a shot clock, which will be very interesting as they will experiment with it in the Metro for the first time.
And I completely forgot about that until someone asked me if they were doing that for just the arena games or for all the tournament games. And it's certainly going to be interesting, especially when you start at the home sites with kind of
without
the quarterfinals. Yeah. And then now you've got the moratorium, and so you can kind of mentally prepare, but you come back here and get like a practice in, and then you're going and you're playing with that shot clock. So I think we talked about it. I think it'll probably be on the coaches more so than the players as to adjust. They've got to be they can't encourage as much patience as they might normally like for some teams that really like to control the ball. You're going to have to get into whatever you want to do early on. It'll be interesting to see if any teams throw out pressure more so than they might normally to try to kind of bleed that clock.
Kind of get you in the deep waters with that shot clock.
Exactly. So there's going to be some nice chess moves back and forth between coaches and teams, I think. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they adjust to that and what that does for this, because we've never seen it before. The Metro, there's maybe 1 or 2 upsets a year, but typically kind of the favorites do very well, and you end up with a great matchup at the end. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts kind of the results of these quarters.
Yeah, and those first round matchups, it was a little interesting. Maybe you call Gretna an upset. For sure, probably Papio going to North and winning that game, especially kind of a shorthanded Monarchs bunch. That was a good win.
Yeah, and handily. They beat them pretty easily. So I think Luke Lindenmeyer had 23 and 16. Not a bad stat line.
Yeah, that's a pretty good stat line.
So, yeah, and that's we talked about that they rely a lot on Ingwerson and Lindenmeyer. And the question about that team is, are they going to be able to get enough from anybody else? I think Spencer Smith had a good game there, the Wayne State football commit.
Boudreaux has been hurt. Keegan Hylock was under the weather, and I think they'll get a healthier version of him for this go-around. They've had a tough schedule. For as early as it is in the season, it's a little bit of a battle-tested bunch.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's hope. I think the hope is for them that test will allow some of their other players that haven't played a lot of varsity ball to gain some experience and kind of grow and become more comfortable. One
advantage they may have is they've seen Millard North before. They played them a couple weeks ago on the front end of that Millard North Bellevue West weekend that they had, and so you'll get the 110 matchup as Millard North and gets to see a scrappy Papillion bunch.
Millard North's the 2.
Yeah, the 2. Yeah, I forgot. That's right. Bell West's the 1.
Although Millard North didn't quite look like the 2 seed and one of the only undefeated teams left in A in that first round game.
Yeah, Brian almost got him early. I saw the very beginning of that game before I had to hop over to West Side. That's a scrappy Brian bunch. Coach Gully does a good job understanding how to take away your strengths while trying to play to his.
And I think that was a good hire for them, bringing Galen back, a guy that you know how invested he is and a guy that's got a lot of experience playing in that environment, playing at the next level, and just being around basketball a lot the last few years, whether summer coaching, reffing, just being around, whatever it is. He knows what the deal is. So it's happy. It was a 52-50 win for Millard North against 15-seeded Bryan. And Millard North shot 36% from the field, including 3 of 20 from 3.
Yeah, their shot selection, we had just kind of gotten, we were talking about, it seems like last week, kind of Neil Mosser starting to find his stroke. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a team-wide epidemic against Bryan. Nobody could really find it from distance.
Yeah, David Harmon, 14 points, 12 rebounds for his 3rd straight double-double. Jason Green, probably his first, I would say, poor game of the season. He had 15, but was on 5 of 12 shooting, 10 boards, and 4 turnovers. The The rest of the team, 23 points on 9 of 35 shooting, including 2 of 17 from 3. And both those threes came from Neil Mosser. So I don't know that this is this is how you beat Millard North. 3 of 20 from 3, I think that's more so a rough shooting game, and then kind of what happens because of that, more so than, this is the blueprint to beat Millard North.
One thing I think you did see, though, Brian did get into and get under Millard North, really forcing them to handle the ball. I'll be curious to see how that backcourt kind of handles teams getting after them a little bit.
And that is kind of what you see with that team, where it's either really inexperience or small. Like Jackson Page is a smaller point guard, and you can put some length on him.
It's a lot of pressure on him to handle the ball. He's got to usually, for me, for that basketball team, he's kind of my X factor because, I think Monster may still need a little more time. We know what you're getting with Harmon and Green.
Yeah.
For me, it's Page. He's experienced. He's got a really high basketball IQ. And I think teams will run at him, try to get the ball out of his hands and make other guys handle it.
And with Mosser and Gaith and McMorris as sophomores, I don't know that you want to count on those guys. Like everything, they're certainly capable of impacting any given game, but you're looking more to your upperclassmen and a guy like Page as a senior to be more of a steadying force than a guy that is kind of up and down. So like you said, he is kind of, if he can be that next piece a little bit more consistently, that'll raise their floor, I think, quite a bit. But there were a lot of good first round games in the tournament. A lot of them ended up being close.
And I think what it is early. It was the familiarity, I think.
3 of the 5 were rematches.
Right. So I think this early in the season, that was a little bit of a surprise. And I don't, as we jump to the other half with the 1 seed in Bellevue West as they get Gretna, one of the better stories brewing early are the Gretna Dragons, right? With Coach Feakin continuing his fight, battling cancer. This team has had a few ups and downs, but they've got some good wins under their belt, and they're kind of a testament to his personality, aren't you? They just get after you. They refuse to back down, and now they get a good Bellevue West bunch.
Yeah, beat South again, second time this season.
It's just a bad matchup, I think, for South. I don't take good enough care of the basketball.
Yeah, and again, we talked about kind of the key pieces for that. I think Grant Jansen had a big game, 18 points, really efficient in that one, and that's what they need from him to kind of balance out all that perimeter scoring. You need that interior force, and that's what he's capable of being, depending on the matchups. And we'll see. William Kyle is kind of a tough matchup with his length and shot blocking.
How about his ability to control both ends of the floor?
Yeah,
he is. So when I look at, I try not to forecast too far in advance, but you start looking at the big guns, whether it's you start with a prep, right? With Jungers and a Will Kyle Jungers matchup. I go Millard North with a Jason Green, Will Kyle matchup. I look at West Side, whether it's Logan Wilson or Tate Oddbody. He's a tough matchup for whatever length you throw at him, because he's such a two-way guy that runs the floor.
Yeah. That's the other part of it too, is like he'll block a shot, sprint
and
down,
be the
and
first
get a
guy
dunk.
down, right?
Yeah.
It's like he plays hard.
Yeah, I gave him a hard time because he put out a clip the other day of a block into a dunk, and the block was definitely a missed goaltend, but the dunk was legal. That was certainly that part was legal. So, but just the fact that he's capable of doing that.
Yeah, he's good. He's good athlete.
Talking about. But yeah, so Bellevue West, they squeezed in 2 games last week. They made the trip down to the Hy-Vee Arena, I believe, to take on a team from Missouri and Helios, and both games. So I think they had 14 players that saw the court against Helios. At least 12 of them scored, and then against Bellevue East in the first round, I think they had 13 get in the game. And Josiah Dozer had 17, 5 steals and 5 assists. Kind of led another game where a lot of players got to play and get some experience. So.
Yeah, with that early schedule being is packed as it was against different caliber of competition, their depth, I think, will serve them well. They'll have fresh legs. They can play 10.
Yeah. You mentioned Prep, that they're the 4 seed, and that they held on for a 52-47 win over 13-seeded Millard West. And this, again, another rematch. That one was close during the regular season as well. Welcome back, Casey O'Malley. 21 points on 8 of 8 from the field, including 5 threes. Looking at the box score, it's really an interesting game because Prep shot 67% from the field, including 10 of 14 from 3. And yet they kind of had to hold on at the end. It's a combination of 15 turnovers, and then they didn't really defend all that well. Millard West shot 54% itself, hit 4 threes. So they just kind of lost the possession battle there with the kind of +4 on turnovers, and let Millard West kind of go off. Cole Kirshner, 16 points, hit 4 threes, and Trace Thaden, 14 points, and didn't miss from the field. So Prep, they good enough offensively, certainly to win the game, but you'd like to see a little bit more defensively. I'm sure Coach over there, is feeling the same way. I'm sure he was not happy about that defense.
And that's kind of his MO, right? I mean, Lutke loves good defense, and you're right. Welcome back, O'Malley. He gives them a legitimate third double-digit a night score to go along with Evans and Jungers. And, as they kind of start to get their legs underneath them, they were wobbled early. They got a few tough wins. Now they can kind of settle in, and they're getting healthier. I won't say healthy because they had a couple key big ones early, but they're getting healthier to give them a run to play potentially 3 games in 3 days.
Yeah, and that first of that is 5th-seeded Omaha Central, and we talked about it last week.
Hard team to figure out.
Well, and we talked about it last week. Every time they play Papio South, it goes down to the wire, and yet again, 54-53 win for the Eagles against Papio South. They were actually up 35-18 at halftime, and then Papio hit them with an 18-6 third quarter to make it a close game in the fourth. And Central shot 38% from the field. They made almost as many threes as they did twos, which you'd like to be a little bit more efficient inside the arc. But I think it was probably just looking at the box score. I didn't get a chance to watch this game, but it seemed like a pretty good game plan from Papio South defensively. Jay Dawson, 9 points on 3 of 7 shooting, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. It kind of made him be more of a playmaker than a scorer. Didn't give him a whole lot of scoring opportunities, and they got 11 points on 4 of 13 shooting from Diambe Brody, 10 points on 3 of 12 shooting from PJ Davis.
Brody's my X factor for that team. I think normally I would say PJ Davis, but I think I've kind of settled into knowing what I'm gonna get from him. Brody's a guy. He's small in stature. He has a little Jackson Page to him in terms of he's got good IQ, a little small in stature, can run the show. A little more limited offensively than I would say some are, but if he can control tempo and take care of the basketball, it puts them in a pretty good position to be competitive down the stretch. They've got to find a way to get a third score.
Yeah,
that's if Central wants to be there when it counts. It can't be, Jay Dawson going bananas, sprinkling PJ Davis, and they've got to find a consistent third score somehow to make sure that they give themselves a chance to win against, I think, what will be the upper echelon, because the 3 teams in the top 3 can all score.
Yeah.
Miller North can score, Westside can score, Bellevue West can score. It will be, can they keep up kind of with that pace, at least in my opinion, early on.
And they scored 19 turnovers to kind of escape with the win there. Daniel Brocail, 21 points, 7-11 from the field.
It's a tough matchup, isn't he?
Free throw line, 11
got
rebounds.
Got good strength. He's
he plays
extremely athletic, and man, is he an end-to-end guy. He plays 94 feet.
Yeah.
you're gonna get your meals worth defending him and trying to get shots off. He plays extremely hard.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't his first double-double, and it won't be his last as a 6'3", 6'4" wing. So he certainly plays hard. He's going to have some big stat lines like that. Elkhorn South scraped by Millard South, 48-46.
They just find ways to win some of these close games.
Yeah, and
they've been in enough of them.
And so they'll get Westside, who handled Benson again for the second time this season. Good to see Tate Advadi back in the lineup. Had a good game, 16 points, efficient shooting. And Kevin Stubblefield, 15 points as well. He had 11 guys score. That's kind of what you want to see in a game like that where everybody gets involved.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really like they're obviously doing their scouting out and they're in films. We kind of talked about Elkhorn South, right? Tough schedule early on, a lot of close games. They don't mind playing that way. So I'll be curious to see how, if Elkhorn South keeps it close, how Westside kind of handles that a little bit. Elkhorn South is going to have to be good defensively. Westside has a lot of guys that can get you, and they can get you in. They have what I call spurt ability, right? They can score 8-9 points like that, and it could be from a number of different people. So that one I think outside of Prep and Central probably interests me the most in terms of tomorrow's games that will happen, just stylistically, because I kind of want to see what happens.
And I think that kind of covers everything for the Metro Holiday Tournament. We'll see kind of what the semis end up being, semis and finals. I think we'll have some good games once we get to that point for sure. Want to skip over to the HAC real quick?
Yeah, because that one, I don't have a favorite.
Yeah,
I've kind of gone back and forth. I don't know if I've come up with a consensus fave.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot from each of those top four.
Yeah.
Whether it be results, whether it be just roster potential. So you got up 1 seed Lincoln Southwest, and the 2 seed is Lincoln East, 3 seed is Lincoln Pius at 10th, and the 4 seed is undefeated Rockets of Lincoln Northeast. So they've got the first round games in Monday first, but those are going to be the 4 teams that are waiting to see their opponents on Tuesday.
It's hard for me. Northeast schedule, as we've talked about, doesn't tell me a ton. I think I know what I'm getting with Pius. Obviously, Boer is kind of he's the wild card there between the scoring and the distribution. Pius has good size. It's really hard to match up with. But then we've seen East and Southwest. The Southwest that ran into that prep buzzsaw, maybe that's a learning experience for them, but they're still a little bit on the young end for some of their what I think will be key pieces. That's really hard to kind of handicap, at least for me.
And Southwest will get the winner of Norfolk and Grand Island, so that could be an interesting one. If Grand Island makes it through, you got Isaac Trout going against that Southwest bunch. Northeast, They've actually, they're 6-0, and they haven't gotten a whole lot out of Porter Basil so far.
Not yet, right?
He hasn't gotten going yet. And
I like the way you kind of broke it down a couple weeks ago. They have about 3 or 4 guys that can get you anywhere from 8 to 13, and that really, I think, is kind of going to be their MO.
And that's pretty much what they're doing right now. You look, they got, I think, Christian Wynn's averaging about 13 a game, really efficient so far. Then after that, you just got G. Gatnor off the bench, about 10 a game. You got Xander Beard about 8 or 9. You got Jalen Lang about 8 or 9. You got Porter Basil about 8 or 9. Like, just everybody's doing a little bit there. Carlos Valdez, again, you got to go about 6 deep of guys that are going to score between 7 and 15 points. And that's how they've been doing it so far. And they will get the winner of 5 seed Lincoln Southeast and the 12 seed Lincoln High. So again, it'd be interesting. You got a little bit more experience on the Northeast team. If seeds hold and Southeast gets there, you got a much younger Southeast team.
Yeah, that Southeast team would be a team probably in about 3 weeks. I wouldn't be all that excited to play because they have a lot of good young pieces, right? But they're young early, and I mean that schedule. They've seen Southwest, they've seen West Side. It's been kind of a tough schedule early on for Lincoln Southeast, but man, those 1 through 4 seeds between Southwest, East, Pius, then Northeast looking like, wait, we're the 4? It will be highly, highly competitive in that bracket.
Yeah, and on the other side, you got Pius as the 3 seed. They're going to face the winner of number 6 Kearney and number 11 Fremont. And then the final one will be East as a 2 seed, playing the winner of Lincoln North Star and Columbus. So looking forward to that. I'm glad that the final is on Thursday, so going to hang out on Baxter all week, use the day off to head down there and hit the finals of the girls and the boys side there on Thursday, and then head back to Baxter on Friday for the
it's a good breakdown, right? So I'll I'll try to give you some working space. We'll be together Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll shoot to Lincoln on Thursday. Back for the finals on Friday, man. We'll cap it all. We'll make sure we get you covered. That's another week of Nebraska Preps post game. That's the main man, Jacob Padilla. I am ODB. We'll be back next week.
A Hurrdat Media Production.